I will be focusing on the New South Wales and Visual Arts curriculum. To start off with, looking at the New South Wales curriculum rationale. It states visual arts has a significant role within the curriculum through providing learning opportunities designed to encourage students to understand the visual arts, including the different kind of creative works they and others make. The key words throughout are intellectual and practical autonomy, reflective action, critical judgment, understanding, art making, critical and historical studies, social, cultural and spiritual, knowledge, opportunities, conceptual framework, the frames and skills. The Australian curriculum, the rationale states it focuses on learning in and through the field of art, craft and design. Students create visual representations that communicate, challenge and express their own and others' ideas as artists and audience. The key words throughout are art, craft and design, perceptual, conceptual understanding, critical reasoning, practical skills, their world, artist, craftsperson and designer, visual arts knowledge, visual techniques, technologies, practices and processes, visual arts histories, theories and practices. Just by looking at the keywords used throughout, you can see already there is a difference between the terminology used. The similarities between the both are they explore the world as an influence, both reference critical and historical studies, and students gain the opportunity and learn different art-making techniques. For the differences, the New South Wales rationale is more descriptive, states the conceptual framework, the frames, and also references to teaching strategies and the use of the syllabus. However, the Australian rationale is very broad and simple. It doesn't give many specifics. There are no references to the conceptual framework, except for the mention of the world, but it doesn't reference the conceptual framework as a whole or use of a teaching strategy, nor does it reference the frames. In the New South Wales, the aims, it states to enable students to develop and enjoy practical and conceptual autonomy in their ability to represent ideas in the visual arts, and to understand and value the different beliefs that affect meaning and significance. In the Australian, the aim states students develop conceptual, perceptual ideas and representations through design and inquiry processes, visual arts techniques, materials, processes and technologies, critical and creative thinking using visual arts, languages, theories and practices to apply aesthetic judgment, respect for acknowledgement of diverse roles, innovations, traditions, histories and cultures of artists, craftspeople and designers, visual arts as social and cultural practices, and industries as artists and audiences. Students also develop confidence, curiosity, imagination and enjoyment, and a personal aesthetic through engagement with visual arts making and ways of representing and communicating. The similarities: students develop practical and conceptual independence, and students learn different techniques and learn to understand and value beliefs that affect meaning and significance. However, the differences are the Australian aims are clear and straightforward, however, are very generic in wording, and the New South Wales curriculum has less aims, however still states what the Australian aims are stating within 2 points rather than extending them in 6. In my opinion, I found the Australian curriculum, the aims were they were easy to read, but they were just elaborated when they could have just been shortened within a couple of points. Moving on to the objectives. In New South Wales, students will develop knowledge, understanding and skills to make artworks informed by their understanding of practice, the conceptual framework and the frames. To critically and historically interpret art, informed by their understanding of practice, the conceptual framework and the frames. Students will value and appreciate their engagement in the practice of visual arts and understand how visual arts as a field of practice and understanding is a subject to different interpretations. In the Australian curriculum, the objectives are students develop knowledge of how ideas and intentions are communicated in and through visual arts. They build on and refine their knowledge, understanding and skills through visual art practices. The similarities between the two: students develop on their own knowledge and understanding and skills. The differences are the layout of the objectives in the New South Wales curriculum is a lot easier to understand and follow, as it clearly states under a heading of what the objectives are and what and how students will achieve these objectives. In the Australian curriculum, it does not state or have a section for the objectives. It is left up to the reader or teacher to decide what the objectives are, such as there is a section under the heading Examples of Knowledge and Skills in Visual Arts. This pretty much does state what the students will develop in this band, which therefore you could consider and use it as your objective. Moving on to the content. In New South Wales, it is divided into Stage 4 and Stage 5. Stage 4 is a mandatory course of 100 hours. It's consisted of 50% art making, 30% critical and historical interpretation and explanations, and 20% student interest. The content includes developing knowledge, understanding, and skills to make artworks, explores the relationship and function of conceptual framework, makes artworks that involve some understanding of the frames, exploring some conventions, activities, traditions, and customs of the field to make art. It reflects and interprets actions and choices to make personal decisions to shape meaning. Students explore 2D and 3D and 4D forms, materials, and techniques. They investigate a range of practices throughout time and evaluate critical and historical interpretations of art. In Stage 5, it is an elective course. It is either of 100 hours or 200 hours, and it consists of 40% art making, 40% critical and historical interpretations, and explanations, and 20% of student interest. The content includes developing knowledge, understanding, and skills to make artworks, makes artworks informed by their understanding of the function and relationship of the conceptual framework, demonstrates how the frames provide different interpretations of art, developing a range of autonomy in selecting and applying visual arts and conventions and procedures to make artworks, making informed choices and extend concepts and different meanings in their artworks, technical accomplishment and refinement, and critically and historically interpret art. In the Australian curriculum, the content is divided into Years 7 and 8 and Years 9 and 10. It isn't under the Stage 4 or Stage 5, and in Years 7 and 8, it is up to the school for the requirement of how many hours it should be taught. The content includes students experiment with visual arts conventions and techniques, including techniques from Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander artists. They develop ways to enhance their intention and artists through research of how artists use materials, techniques, technologies, and processes. The development of planning skills for art making, practice techniques, present artworks demonstrating considerations of the artwork of how the artwork is displayed to enhance the artist's intention to an audience. Analyze how artists use visual conventions in artworks. Identify and connect specific features and purpose of visual artworks for contemporary and past times to explore viewpoints and enrich their art making, starting with Australian artworks, including those of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. In Years 9 and 10, it is also up to the school for the requirement of how many hours to be taught. The content includes conceptualize and develop representations of themes, concepts, or subject matter to experiment with their developing personal style, reflecting on the styles of the artists, including Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander artists. Students manipulate materials, techniques, technologies, and processes to develop and represent their own artistic intentions. They develop and refine techniques and processes to represent ideas and subject matter. They plan and design artworks that represent artistic intention, present ideas for displaying artworks, and evaluate displays of artworks. They also evaluate how representation communicates artistic intentions in artworks they make and view inform their future art making. They analyze a range of visual artworks from contemporary and past times, exploring different viewpoints. The similarities between both curriculums are students explore different conventions, activities, traditions, and customs of the field to make art. Students learn to analyze artworks and develop an understanding of artists' intentions. They develop skills to portray intention within art making. Students also learn about past and present artists and artworks. Students learn to understand and interpret art from different viewpoints. The differences between the two are the Australian curriculum does not state as a requirement of how many hours are needed for the course or how much of each content to teach. For example, the New South Wales state 100 hours and 40% art making, etc. The New South Wales outline is a lot clearer and easier to follow and understand. It states for the stage the objective, outcome, and what students should learn about and learn to for each topic. However, the Australian curriculum layout isn't as user-friendly, it is harder to read and follow. The wording is a lot more broad and generic. It needs to be more detailed and on description, elaboration, and standards. The content seems very simple and a strong focus on art making. The Australian curriculum states teaching Aboriginal art compulsory. However, there is no suggestion for helpful teaching strategies in order to successfully implement Aboriginal art in a respectful manner. The terminology used is different, such as in the New South Wales curriculum, the frames is referenced as a way to teach. However, in the Australian curriculum, the frames aren't mentioned as in a reference to them. They state students learn from different viewpoints rather than stating cultural, structural, subjective frames. Moving on to the structure. In New South Wales, it is organised into 10 sections under the headings Introduction, Rationale, Pathways of Learning, Visual Arts and the K-12 Curriculum, Aims, Objectives, Outcomes, Content, Life Skills, Outcomes and Content, Continuum of Learning in the Visual Arts, K-10, and Assessment. The structure of the syllabus is designed to guide teachers through the steps in the ways in which learning the visual arts year 7 to 10 syllabus contributes to the curriculum and the students' aims and outcomes. Throughout each stage, there is a students learn about and learn to section. This is providing teachers with a guidance of the expectations of what students should be learning by also allowing flexibility on how teachers and schools want to teach the content. In the Australian curriculum, the structure is organised in 6 sections: rationale, aims, structure, student diversity, general capabilities, cross-curriculum priorities. Then it further goes on into the curriculum stages, such as foundation to year 2, years 3 and 4, 5 and 6, 7 and 8, and 9 and 10. Then in each band, there is a band description, content description, and achievement standards. The structure for visual arts is focused on play-based learning. The curriculum focuses on learning in visual arts through making and responding to artworks influenced by the world. Students learn to reflect critically on their own experiences and respond to the work of the artists, craftspeople, and designers to develop their own arts knowledge and preferences. In comparing the similarities, they are both divided into sections according to stage level, and they also both provide the outcomes for the stage and what students should learn to do. However, the differences are: the New South Wales layout is a lot clearer and easier to follow. It provides guidance for teachers on the outcomes students need to reach for each stage. However, the Australian structure is more confusing and a lot harder to follow when looking for the objectives and following the outcomes and the content information. For example, when you look at the Australian curriculum, under the outcomes there are symbols, which if you don't know what those symbols mean, it can get a bit confusing at what they're addressing. The conceptual theoretical underpinnings. For New South Wales, the resources range from 1980s to the 90s. There is a discourse of visual arts as creativity as it focuses on students expressing and generating their own creativity. Another discourse is visual culture. It is teaching students to understand what is happening around them at that time in order to understand an artwork. It explores the function and relationship between the artist's artwork, world, and audience, and demonstrates how the frames provide different interpretations of art. This is mentioned in the syllabus as an outcome. Throughout the curriculum, the words generating, realizing, and responding are specific to all art forms, and have with them a taxonomic agendas of cognitive processes of learning. In addition, the discourse of taxonomy is emphasized in the sequential ordering of learning, when first we apprehend, then we comprehend, to develop meaning of the world. These claims about learning and meaning develop lack of research precepts. As in relation to art, it contradicts the complex theoretical configurations represented in visual arts education, research and practice. In the Australian curriculum, the conceptual theoretical underpinnings are: the resources range from 1953 to 2010. There are a range of resources from past and contemporary researchers. A lot of research has been done on art as play, such as these examples show, and there is a common discourse as art as creativity, such as students develop their creativity through communicating that they respond and feed off each other. Another discourse is visual literacy, as students are focused on students being able to identify and explain using appropriate visual language in order to interpret artworks. The words generating, realizing, and responding are also commonly used throughout the Australian curriculum. The similarities between both are similar discourse on visual art as creativity as students develop their own creativity, and both use the same wording such as generating, realizing, and responding in order to teach visual arts. However, it does contradict the Bloom's taxonomy way of learning, as in visual arts, students begin to learn by creating, then they realize, analyze, and respond. The differences between the two, as the Australian curriculum has more contemporary resources, however the New South Wales are mainly from the past, which may not have much relevance to teaching art education in today's society. New South Wales focus on visual arts as knowledge, creativity, and culture. Australian curriculum focuses on visual art education as creativity and visual literacy. The idea that art is taught through play and creativity is not taught, it is inherited. New South Wales suggests creativity is generated and promoted by the teacher. In New South Wales are the approaches to pedagogy in the curriculum. The New South Wales curriculum focuses on teachers teaching as facilitators, providers, teaching students the knowledge and skills and guiding them throughout. Teachers are to provide students with consistent feedback throughout classroom activities to demonstrate their learning. Teachers are to use standards in visual arts as a reference point for planning teaching and learning programs and for assessing and reporting student progress. The aim is to provide teachers and students set targets, monitor achievement, and therefore make changes to programs and strategies to support and improve each other's students' progress. In relation to Albert Bandura's social cognitive theory, the curriculum addresses how people's social and emotional, cognitive and behavioral capabilities, how regulate their lives and what motivates them. The curriculum mentions teachers are to consider personal behavior and environmental variables when planning their lessons. Assessment for learning is designed to enhance teaching and improve learning. It involves teachers in deciding how and when to assess students' achievement as they plan the work students will do using a range of appropriate assessment strategies including self-assessment and peer assessment. Teachers of visual arts will provide students with opportunities in the context of everyday classroom activities as well as planned assessment events to demonstrate learning. In the Australian curriculum, the approaches to pedagogy focuses on play-based learning. Play-based learning is developed through engagement, communication, and a sense of purpose. Play provides opportunities for students to learn through imagining, discovering, and experimenting to create social groups, challenge each other's thinking, and build new understandings. Structured play can be challenging and rigorous, and teachers can nurture the artistry in play. The curriculum leaves it up to the teachers on how they want to interpret the outcomes and content in order to teach it. There are no specifics on how they should teach the content. In relation to assessment, the Australian curriculum has an overview for assessing overall curriculum courses, stating assessing student learning includes ongoing formative assessment within classrooms, summative assessment for the purpose of twice yearly reporting by schools to parents or carers on the progress and achievement of students, annual testing of years 3, 5, 7 and 9 to assess students' level of achievement in aspects of literacy and numeracy, which is a NAPLAN, periodic sample testing of specific learning areas within the Australian curriculum is part of the National Assessment Program. Besides the overview of assessing, at the end of each stages, there are achievement standards, guidelines for teachers. So in visual arts, by the end of Year 8, students identify and analyse how artists use visual conventions and viewpoints to communicate ideas and apply this knowledge in their art making. They explain how artwork is displayed to enhance its meaning. They evaluate how they and others are influenced by artworks from different cultures, times and places. Students plan their art making in response to exploration of techniques and processes used in their own and others' artworks. They demonstrate use of visual conventions, techniques and processes to communicate meaning in their artworks. And by the end of Year 10, students evaluate how representations communicate artistic intentions in artworks they make and view. They evaluate artworks and displays from different cultures, times and places. They analyse connections between visual conventions, practices and viewpoints that represent their own and others' ideas. They identify influences of other artists and on their own artworks. Students manipulate materials, techniques and processes to develop and refine techniques and processes to represent ideas and subject matter in their artworks. For the similarities between the both curriculums, they both provide ongoing feedback during classroom activities. Both curriculums don't give much advice on pedagogy. They provide slight guidance on how teachers could implement the content, however it is purely up to the teacher on how they want to interpret and implement the content in order to reach the outcomes. The differences between the two are the New South Wales has a specific assessment section for the visual arts. However, the Australian curriculum only has an overview for all curriculum courses and only a small achievement standard at the end of the stage for visual arts. This doesn't give teachers much guidance on how to assess students in visual arts. In relation to pedagogy, New South Wales focuses on students being taught and guided. However, the Australian curriculum focuses on students being allowed to play in order to express their own creativity and learn. And that concludes. Thank you. And here are my references that I've used throughout. Thank you.